The Mastering Local Marketing podcast helps local small business owners like you understand what it takes to successfully market your business and drive new customers through your doors. We provide actionable insights, interview leading experts and business owners in various industries, as well as provide tips and tricks we've uncovered over the last 25 years in the field. Whether you're starting your business or you've been at it for decades, let us provide you with the education and resources you need to grow your customer base. It's time to start mastering your local marketing. Here's your host, Matt Hansen.
Episode 58, Matt Hansen. We're in on it. This finally got here.
We're here. We'll keep going. Let's keep doing this.
And are you getting podcast fatigue yet?
I think I'm just fatigued. I've got 2 hours of sleep last night. I'm really looking forward to finding a bed at some point to fall asleep, but it's been one of those weeks.
Do you want to share the story of your dog and is it a him or her?
Her. No, I'd rather not. I can't actually touch on one thing though that I've learned when somebody has an incident with their dog. We've talked about the Google business profiles in the past. Please update them, because I turned one direction, then I had to go to another direction, and then we went to literally the wrong address because the company had moved. So please just do me a favor. Update your Google business profile so people can find you.
How do you do that?
You've got to own it, right? So you've got to own your Google business profile, go in there, but just make sure that your address is correct, your phone numbers are correct, all of those different things, because, in my situation, I was trying to get my dog somewhere, and we ended up in a dark lit parking lot in a building where we thought they were and realized that they were not there anymore. So let's just do me a favor, update those profiles.
Can we take that and use that information applied here? And the two marketing guys are sitting out there, Hunter and Jaime. I have not done that for WJOB Radio. Certainly the Jet TV Sports Network is located here on the PNW campus, but 7 blocks away is a 404-foot tower. And I never pushed the address over here, so when people put it on their Google Maps, they're going to a building we haven't been in 10 years. They're sitting and looking at a tower like, where are they? When we're sitting here waiting for them. So thank you for bringing that up. He's Matt Hansen. He's a professor of digital marketing. And I'm Jim Deedlow, the owner of Jed TV Sports Network and WJOB Radio. And I got my MBA and met Matt that way. And that is the resulting podcast. But we want to talk marketing, really how to get the most for the money that you spend, specifically as a small to medium-sized business or small to medium-sized marketing department for perhaps a larger business. If you're, in a major corporation's marketing department, some of the principles are the same, but, the actual putting it into action is a little bit different, as you'll be operating on a different level. And Matt, one of the things that we're talking about, here we are recording this in the middle of the dog days of summer. It couldn't be hotter right now. You go into a lot of retail businesses, and during this relative heat wave, they're kind of slow.
Right.
And you got to still keep money coming through, or you're not a business any longer. So let's talk about the attitude when, especially seasonally, you are slow. What is the attitude you should take towards that?
Yeah, most of the time what we see is during this time, I think in the next week it's supposed to go back up to 95 degrees and 70 dew points and all, just ridiculous humidity, and nobody wants to really be out shopping and walking around towns and things like that in that heat. So, what we see is a drastic dip in foot traffic. It's too hot. I don't want to go sweat and walk around. But there's a couple ways that you can look at that from a store owner or a business owner, right? We can sit there and we can do all of the things that need to be done that we haven't been able to get to when we've been busy, or you can try and stimulate some interest, right? Get out there in front of people. And I think one of the ways to do that is we start talking about you've got this kind of free social media owned pages and accounts out there that you can promote yourself. And when it's slow, you can get a little bit more creative, right? You have a little bit more time to do different things. And I want to touch on that today is what are those things when people aren't necessarily walking through the doors? What are those things that you can start to post and put out there on social to get people to see you, right? To remind them that you're around. Maybe there's certain things that you can do to stimulate interest to get people to come in the doors even though they weren't planning on going shopping, right? So that's what I want to talk about today. I've got a bunch of different ideas, but that's I think what most people do is they sit there and they stare at the door hoping that somebody's going to walk in instead of being proactive and saying, okay, well, let's start stimulating eyeballs and getting them through the front door. So that's what I want to talk about today. We've got some really cool ideas.
So the objective or the way of thinking about it is, for 20 years I traded in the pits of the Board of Trade, and most of the time there was action, but we would go through parts of the day or even like weeks at a time where there was just not very much market action. And what I learned over time was, I basically called it learn or earn. And if there's no market, there's nothing happening, what can you do during that time that will make you better for when the market does move? And a similar thinking here when it's slow. And one of those is that you want to stay relevant to people, you want to nurture relationships, you want to build the connections that will be important when your HVAC person is needed or your advertising for sports is needed. So what is it that, give us some ideas of, like, just look at your Facebook feed or any of your socials. What do you put on it when it's slow and people don't need your business?
Yeah, so for example, right, I'm going to look at your business here, right? So you have the sports network, and everyone that is going out and covering all the games and all these different things. You've got a lot of different personalities in here, right? A bunch of different people that have worked here for some time. Do we get to know them on the outside, right? So one of the things that I love to do is behind the scenes. So we have our lovely producer behind the glass that occasionally you hear her chime in what we're talking about, but we don't necessarily highlight what it takes to put on this podcast or what it takes to put on your sports network, right? I can't even fathom all the different things that have to go into that. But you start to share the behind the scenes, or you start to share the personalities of those individuals. I teach at a university, and we have a bunch of different marketing professors, and each one of them has a different personality. So if we wanted to highlight the different personalities and what they do, you're going to see that I'm drastically different from the next professor, right? So I have my different hobbies, my different things, my different teaching styles, that all the things that really excite me are drastically different from somebody else. But what we're saying is, from a small business perspective, you're more than just the sign that's on the outside of your business. People want to get to know who they're dealing with, right? So if it's the owner providing information about themselves, it's the person at the desk that is providing information about themselves, or you're just kind of showing bloopers of things that you do during the day, it shows that you're a human being, right? That you are authentic, that you are a real business, that you have struggles just like the rest of us. But, I've seen some of our local businesses around here have done an amazing job just showing the behind the scenes. And we've had a few of them on as guests, and that's why I bring them on, because you're doing a great job telling the story of running your business, and you can see the humor, or you can see the struggle, you can see, it's that authenticity that you're showing. So if if there aren't people walking through the door and you have that time, just start to think about, how do we show behind the scenes footage of things that we're doing, or, goofing off, or whatever you want to show, but have some fun to show the authentic side of who you are.
What about, you're talking about your own people behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. Well, everybody's got customers. I know the answer to this, you can, but how would you flip that paradigm And instead of looking at yourself, look at your customers.
Yeah. So yesterday, I was pitching some ideas to different businesses. And the number one thing that I was showing them was every touch point that I was trying to show them, I had a testimonial from a customer highlighting their reaction to that bonus, right? That piece of what I was out there selling. Why did I do that? Because it's authentic. It shows that I'm not just telling you this is going to happen. This is what former clients have said happened based on their reaction to what we're doing here. So you can highlight the customers and their experiences. You can highlight the testimonials, or you can just highlight the customers, right? So here's Nancy, right? She's been a customer of us for 20 years. We love Nancy. She's part of the family. You're just kind of doing that. I think from a local level, we have Albert's Jewelers, who they've done that for years, where they interview and they show their former customers. And, obviously their social media person is a former student of ours, but they highlight the customer a lot. And I think that shows that your customers are pleased with you, and people love to see that. And maybe you tag them on the post. But if your favorite companies that you deal with over and over start to tag you, that's exciting, right? Like, oh, they've noticed me. I'm real to them. I matter. Those are just simple little things that you can do. So if Nancy walks in on the day when it's very quiet and say, hey, Nancy, I want to do a highlight on you. You've been coming here for 20 years. Let's just do a quick video, 1-2 minutes. We're going to ask you a few questions. Would you mind? She'd be like, oh, no, this would be great, right? Get some video. You post that on there. Nancy stopped in today. This is who she is. And then you just keep doing that. Keep highlighting different customers through different weeks, and you're going to start to see a new area, a new content pillar that develops into your social platform.
What about how-to videos?
People love how-tos, right? Let's face it. If you are a business that people are buying your product to do something, right? So yesterday I was cleaning some things up, and I moved a chair, and I saw my son had done a painting, and there were 3 different canvases. So he must have bought like a 4 or 5 pack, and there were 3 canvases sitting there. And I can't paint. I'm going to be honest. I'm an extremely artistic person. I can use technology to design. I can draw. I cannot paint to save my life. Right? I took advanced art in high school. I probably spent 6 months on a painting, and I still hated it after I was done with it. Right? The thing was, it was twice as thick when I was done with it. But if you could show me a how-to to build something, to paint something that I can watch, I'm more inclined to give it a try. Right? So if you sell painting products or something that people buy to do something, you're not just selling it to them in the hopes that they'll figure out how to do it, but now you've got a how-to, right? So from my perspective, if I'm talking to my clients, and you asked me earlier, how do you go fix your Google business profile? I'm actually working on a document right now that will tell you step 1 through the final step. These are the things that you need to do, and here are the tips and tricks along the way. Right, so I'm going to give that to my customers to say, this is how you do it. So that's a how-to. That could become a video, right, on social. It could be, hey, we've got this PDF. All you have to do is go here and download it, and it's a how to do it, right? Like, that's content. And that's something that you could do when you're sitting there twiddling your thumbs waiting for somebody to walk through the door.
To some extent, this podcast is a how-to.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, and obviously markets both you and your business and your persona online, and of course it markets my sports network. But right now, here in the middle of summer, and if you're listening in the middle of winter, sorry you're freezing, but right now it's very hot, and much of my job on the morning show is to promote local events and our partnerships with the many festivals. And we sponsor most of the festivals that come to us and buy some advertising. But you can do that without having a media company. How do you do it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think realtors are the number one way that I tell them all the time. We're buying into a local municipality, right? It doesn't matter what town, city that you're moving into. People want to know what's going on. So if they sell a house or they help you buy a house in a local area, are they done with you at that point? Probably, unless you're providing any additional value. So again, if you're a realtor and it gets slow as you get into, I would say once you hit Thanksgiving, nobody wants to move in that window. It's, cold in Chicago. You're in the holidays. Nobody wants to pick up and move at that point. Provide value at that point. It's now slow. People aren't calling you. Nobody's looking at houses. Provide real value, right? So could it be, holiday events that are going on, Christmas markets that are out there, New Year's celebrations that you didn't know about, alternative New Year's things that you can do at home, party ideas that you can have, things you could do with your children if you don't want to go out for New Year's, right? Like all of these different things, these content that you can put out there that keeps people looking forward to seeing what you have next. So as a realtor, right, the idea is I only need you so often, right? I haven't moved in years. Some people move every couple years, but there are realtors that I follow because of the content that they provide, right? They're telling you about the events that are going on. Maybe they're sharing recipes, right? Like I love to cook. Maybe they're giving you a recipe every week. They've partnered with a chef. I don't know. There's a million different ways that you can do this, but these are content pillars that you can put out there. And you mentioned the events, right? We've got concerts going on around us because we're in the summer. I personally don't necessarily go to them, but just by sitting here today, I've learned who's in town. If I'm online, I saw a lot of the things that are going on, so I know that's the way that I'm getting that information. So if you are the one putting out that information and people are interacting with that, they're going to see you a lot more than they would if you're not putting that content out there.
What about polls? We do that with our sports. What game should we do? Who is, tell us who the top 5 are in football in this area. And those they get a lot of interaction.
People love to argue for some reason. So when you put a poll out there, everyone wants to put their opinion out there. So I love watching that in sports because, again, grew up a Bears fan. I will always be a Bears fan. I'm going in not optimistic this year. I'm done doing that. But, I follow probably 4 or 5 different accounts that talk about the Chicago Bears. And they're always putting different polls out there, and people are arguing one side versus the other. They're going to be good. They're not going to be good. All this stuff.
Give me a record right now for 20, 25, 26.
I will be impressed if they win 6 games.
Ooh. I'm going 8-8, but that's right. A little bit optimistic at this point.
I'm going to say 6.
All right, let's do an over-under at 7. You get everything under. You get 7 or under, and I'll take 8 or over.
All right. We'll talk in October, and you'll go, you were right again. Sorry. They
got Caleb Williams, dude.
He's great, but yeah,
and they got 3 new receivers. So
it's one of those you got to prove it before I'm going to believe it.
So we have just given you an example of what could happen if you put something up about where the Bears are going to finish this year, that kind of thing, and you'll have people going back and forth. It might not be anything. Nothing might happen, but then it might kind of blow up where people are very passionate about the Bears.
But think about that, right? So you put up there, how many wins will the Chicago Bears get this year? Right? Let's say 6, 7, 8, 9. That's the poll. Or, 9+, whatever it is. People start to vote. That's the engagement with the post, which now means that you're training the algorithm. Okay, these people want to see this content from this person. The comments start to chime in. They explode because people take one side or the other, right? and it kind of boosts that post. And basically what ends up happening is a simple poll in a down day where you're not driving a ton of traffic has now exploded, and people are providing their input on it. And now it's being spread through social because of all the engagement that it's getting just on a simple poll about wins, right? And that's the funny part. Like, anyone can do that. Now, mind you, I've also started to see really bad examples of questions that people are putting out there, and they're implementing AI into these Facebook groups to propose questions. And so you got to watch that as well, because I've seen some where people are going, these are the worst AI questions I've ever seen because they're irrelevant to this area, to what's going on. I won't give any examples and I won't call anybody out, but just keep in mind there are some that work and there are some that don't, but a simple poll, a simple question can actually trigger a massive response and get people thinking about you.
We do a lot on AI and implementing that into the marketing. But let me tell you this, from someone who has, I think, looking at 3 people out there working on marketing right now outside of the fishbowl windows. And, of course, Adriana Alvarez, our producer, is one class away from her digital marketing degree. I didn't know that. I can tell when, hey, I need a proposal for such and such, and they come back in about 10 minutes, and it's a complete AI write-up, right, and maybe they edited just a little bit. If I can tell, so can the marketing person or the person buying the advertising. You really got to watch when putting that stuff together, and there's a good example. Don't put an AI question as a poll without looking at it and vetting it, making sure it applies to your target audience and to your local area.
Yeah. I mean, again, you can use AI, and I strongly tell everyone to use AI, including my students, right? I tell them to use it because it will speed up the process. But the other thing with AI is, so for example, I was using AI yesterday to craft some messaging. We went in, I put in my initial thoughts, it spit it out. I liked probably 25% of what it had done. I said, okay, let's go back. I said, here are the parts that I like. Here are the problems with the other parts. Can we rephrase this? It came back and I said, okay, great. We're getting closer. Let me pull this offline. I pulled it offline. I had roughly about a 40-50% of it done, and now I had to craft it in the way that I wanted the message. I went back to AI and, basically ChatGPT, and said, okay, here's where we started. Here's what I developed. This is my style. Please learn from this. This is, where I went. This is why I did it. And it said, okay, great. Here are some additional recommendations to make it even better. And then we started going back and forth again, right? So I think and I know we're kind of going off topic here, but I think from AI's perspective, if you're not using it, you're in trouble already, right? Because where we're heading, and I don't want to get into LLM, models and all this other stuff, but like where we are heading in the future, we are speeding up faster and faster and faster. And you just got to hold on and start learning as much as you possibly can. But it's funny because in our household, we have multiple computers and some form of AI is open at all times. My children are using it. I'm using it. And we're speeding things up and we're moving so fast. And it's funny because people ask me all the time, how do you do what you do? Like, how do you have that much energy? And again, I say, like, I got 2 hours of sleep last night, sleeping on the floor with my dog because, she's injured. But
we knew the dog story was coming up.
Yeah, sorry. To get away I'm trying. I don't want to get into it. But anyways, like, I still knew I had to do this podcast this morning, and I wasn't going to stop. And I went into AI, and we were talking about things. And I've trained everything to where it's a conversation. It is a partner with me to provide content. So if you do that, and taking this back to the social side of things, all I have to do, if I go into ChatGPT at this point, I will say, new reel. This is what we discussed in it. it will spit out based on all the parameters that I have put in there. It has learned who I am, how I want things done. It'll spit it out. I can literally cut, copy, boom, we're good, done.
Ultimately, this is episode 58, and I want to go into promotions and sales and that stuff when things are slow. But what you should really do is go back an episode, and we pretty much covered discounts and promotions and so forth. This one is specifically about what to do when it's slow, and everybody has that. And the overriding attitude would be, to me, is the same thing: learn or earn. And all right, it's your busy season. If it's October and it's the middle of July, how do you stay relevant? Certainly, taking some of these tips will help you stay relevant.
Yep.
And until next time, we'll see you later.
The Mastering Local Marketing podcast helps local small business owners like you understand what it takes to successfully market your business and drive new customers through your doors. We provide actionable insights, interview leading experts and business owners in various industries, as well as provide tips and tricks we've uncovered over the last 25 years in the field. Whether you're starting your business or you've been at it for decades, let us provide you with the education and resources you need to grow your customer base. It's time to start mastering your local marketing.